The best strategy for our clients that we've recommended is you just want to be a long-term holder. But most people don't approach crypto that way. Most are trading it and want instant return. The work by our technical strategist, Mark Newton, so he thinks Solana, Ethereum, and Bitcoin all have downside. He has been bearish since mid-January. So I think it's been correct. And his downside target for Bitcoin is 62,000 by the end of March. But to me, is 62,000 a reason to turn bearish on Bitcoin? I mean, if you're trading it, yeah, but Bitcoin was $1,000, $100 10 years ago. So, 60,000 is still a fantastic return. And I think Bitcoin's usefulness is still improving. I don't think it moves. It's still a risk on assets. So I don't expect it to do well if the market is being hit by tariffs. Like it's not immune to that kind of turbulence. But is the trust around Bitcoin going to grow over the next 5 years? Yes. And is it going to be increasingly viewed as a store of value like gold? Yes, I think increasingly. And then is there room for a lot more people to own it? Yes. So I'm not really bearish on it, but I think in the near term, it's hard to say it should go up right now.
Yeah, you do a lot of correlation work, and this is purely anecdotal on my part. It seems very correlated to the NASDAQ 100 right now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a risk on asset.
Yeah. Let's just kind of take some stock of the whole conversation a little bit, because you've been very bullish for a while, and you've been right. Does 2 months cause you, we're kind of basically, let's say the S&P is unchanged, the NASDAQ's down a few percent, we're 2 months into the year, there's a lot of uncertainty about, we talked about immigration, tax, tariff, geopolitics, the list goes on and on. Things are likely to cool out a little bit at some point, right? On that sort of front, we get some of that uncertainty out of the way. How are you thinking, just if you want to put it in a nutshell, the economy this year? It sounds like you think rates should go lower. You think inflation is probably not going up much higher. And then generally, how are you thinking about the stock market?
I mean, the market is trying to price in a lot of these uncertainties right now. And so it's understandable that we're churning. But investors don't want to become too bearish, because the market sentiment, and it's already measurable, like the AAII survey, which is what we've used for the last 14 years. I think it's the best retail sentiment survey, is at the same bearish levels it was in the fall of 2022. So retail sentiment, and that's probably because there's been a ton of margin calls last couple weeks, is at the levels that were at the depths of that recent bear market. So the investors view this as a crisis when it's really a growth scare. So to me, I think there's a good chance we're making our lows for the first half, like this week, and
like down 5-6%. You mean?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing is I'm not that optimistic about the job picture for the near term. So maybe that's one last leg. But the reality is that a lot of bad news has gotten priced in. And, on the flip side of this is that the closer we get to stall speed, the more the Fed has to get off neutral. And I think the White House will have to back off talk of things that could be hurting the economy.
Do you think we're going to get a 10% pullback in the S&P this year? Because we did have one July highs to the August lows, and things kind of accelerated into that August low, and it felt a little panicky. And again, since then, we haven't had too much panic. I think that move in December after the Fed meeting, that felt really bad. But we were not making, it didn't take long to make new highs.
Well, I think that July to August was essentially, I would say, Fed driven.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense, because it felt like either the Fed made a policy error or the Fed turned hawkish.
Right.
But either way, we had a big drawdown. Will that happen this year? I mean, yeah, I think it'll happen. If I'm guessing, it's more in the second half. So I think this is just a flesh wound right now, not the source of a drawdown.
Okay, so flesh wound, how much upside do you think if we get a lot of those headwinds kind of out of the way, a lot of those uncertainties we just talked about? Let's say we get the base case on that kind of pro-growth agenda that a lot of folks were excited about.
Let me be clear why I don't think it's 10%. Because let's say that some policies implemented that would cause the U.S. stock market to go down 10.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you the rest of the world's down 30.
Right.
So will Europe and Canada, Mexico dig in and we'll just power through this? No, they're going to capitulate. So the reality is that this brinksmanship probably means the other side caves in. That's why I don't think we're.
But it probably takes longer than expected because I think we keep throwing these threats out, but we don't actually put any like requests for concessions out, right? Like there really aren't that many right now. I mean, it just seems like it's a bit of a tit for tat. And I think the other side is just kind of sitting there and they're taking the volleys right now because they don't really know what they want.
I'm not an administrator, so I don't know what kind of back channel talk there is. I'm sure there is, so I don't.
Right.
I don't have an answer for
Well, listen, I'm probably with you. I expect some sort of deal, the art of the deal, that sort of thing. All right. Well, we covered a lot of ground here, Tom. I really appreciate you coming by. Again, I think this is a really interesting time for the markets. I know it keeps you very busy. I know that you guys have a lot of clients who probably give you guys some very good insights also. And it's always good to get a sense because I know that you guys have a huge list of retail clients too who read your stuff every day, and so it's always probably interesting to hear.
Even aside from these macro sort of outlooks, how about the AI trade? I mean, we've certainly seen signs of weakening, some skepticism there, especially surrounding NVIDIA, which hasn't filled in that pre-DeepSeek gap that it created. Where does that stand? How important is that for this next move forward for the bottoming process?
I think technology is still important for the next few years. In our sector weightings this year, it's number 3. So financials, industrials, first and second. But I think it's just digesting a lot of the prodigious gains the last 2 years. But I don't think AI spending is really going to weaken. I know investors have a lot of good news baked in.
So I think the market, if it does resume a move higher, you think it's the same leadership, or there has been some rotation away from some of the Mag 7 and financials have looked strong. Will it look different, or will the winners come back with a vengeance?
Yeah, I mean, in January, the first, let's say, five weeks or so, that leadership was different because it was a lot more tech outside of the Mag 7, and it was financials, and it was some mid and small caps. I think once we're through this rough patch, that's the kind of leadership we think will.
All right, you want to make some. I don't know why we told you people you were going to talk about Bitcoin, but now that we did, you do need to talk about it. I mean, it's come back a little bit. What did you attribute the move down below 80 to? Just that it's Bitcoin? What do you want?
Yes. I would say what's interesting is Bitcoin's not had negative headlines in February, but it was down. But I know our technician, Mark Newton, had talked about this being a cyclical downturn in Bitcoin through the end of March. So he was talking mid-January, getting down to 62. The weekend...
105 to 62. That's just Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's a typical...
Do the math, though. It's like, in a month, 105 to 62?
Yeah, that's a test of the resolve
that hurts
bulls,
people that buy at 105.
Yeah, but as you know, Bitcoin makes all of its gains in 10 days. So if people sort of try to time this, they're going to miss out on a chance for Bitcoin to go back to its highs.
And by the end, at some point in this year, you think it gets, because last year you thought it might get to 150 or even higher, right?
Yeah. I think it's going to do better than 150 this year.
You do?
Yeah.
U.S. dollar?
Yes.
What? 150?
Hungarian forint?
Yeah,
I mean, like,
I don't know. Something that's a lot less than $150,000. It's a lot better than higher than 150.
That's right, because it's becoming more widely held.
Yeah.
If Citadel starts trading it, it starts to have more broad acceptance.
Okay. Tom Lee, thanks.
Thank you.
Don't be a stranger. You're not, but come back again. Thank you.